Welcome to another episode of Grit, Grace, and Growth. I'm your host, Laura Navaquin, and today we have a special guest, Shannon Godfrey. Shannon is a seasoned sales leader and founder of RevUp. With over 15 years of experience in B2B sales, particularly in tech and education sectors, Shannon has a proven track record of driving revenue growth and building high-performing teams with startups. She's here today to share her insights on essential sales strategy tips and boost your revenue, as well as the importance of investing in yourself and networking beyond your circle. All right, y'all. So I shared with you moments ago my special guest today, Shannon Godfrey, who is the founder of RevUp. With over 15 years of experience in sales, particularly in tech and education sectors, I can't wait to dive in all the questions that I have for her today. Similarly to myself, I had been in sales for almost my entire career in health insurance. And I think that most people, or maybe not most people, but often people think that sales is, you have it or you don't have it, or there's a certain technique that you can get that sale. And it's really an art to it. So I can't wait to dive in with Shannon right now and get her insights and expertise on everything sales. Shannon, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Grit, Grace, and Growth today. I cannot wait to dive in.
Yes, absolutely. Super excited to be here. Can't wait to dive in as well.
Before we dive into like the more specific questions here, can you share a little more with myself and followers, especially as far as your background? So prior to RevUp, where had your career started?
Absolutely. So, right out of college, I got the real salary, full-time benefits, corporate job, which was a really great confidence boost, right? Right out of college, landing an actual job after many internships and working retail and all these other things. And then I just had some troubles while I was working there. There was lack of direction, some of the development or rewarding really great workers for their effort. It just didn't make sense to me. It was a bonus structure system based on how long you've been in your chair, opposed to rewarding you for the effort that you've completed for the company. And so shortly after working there, I gave up my full-time salary and I took a plunge and I went straight in startup realm. I worked like first job, I think it was a stipend, no benefits, no insurance, nothing of that sort, but I found my passion. And so for the past 20 years, I've worked for a variety of different startup organizations, from consumer electronics to software technology, emerging technologies. And I just found my love. I really enjoyed being able to be closer towards a founder's vision and what they were looking to execute on, helping to execute and wearing many different hats, really being able to roll up your sleeves and figure out how do we make a company that has competition and strong barriers, people don't know who we are, and how do we build something with that? How do we give ourselves runway? And it just became my passion. So I've worked in a variety of different startups. And then I was able to rise up in a number of them. My background was in marketing originally, doing a number of different marketing and PR. And then that morphed into sales, channel communications, and prep work. So I was really in charge of building out support so that the sales teams could sell successfully. And then I just one time found myself at a conference pitching everyone because I knew it and I was training the trainers basically. And that evolved into my sales career and started going into software sales. I started as a rep working for a territory and exceeded my goals and just continued to align the founder's vision of where they wanted to go with what gaps I felt the sales were missing into new categories, new target markets. And so I was lucky that at the startup, I had the opportunity to create my own positions and rise up in my sales career. And that led me to leading sales teams across a couple of different startup organizations and helping to then train other sales reps that were coming in, for a lot of startups. They can't hire necessarily the best of the best, the most experienced people coming in. And so you're getting folks that maybe haven't had experience. There may be friends, relatives, or college connections. And so figuring out how can we help train, support, and guide these people in being successful from a sales perspective. How do we incorporate strategy and make adjustments based on our market, the time of day, or what's happening in the seasonal calendar? All of that is really where I found my excitement leading teams and managing the sales side. So long story, but startups
Yeah.
and a variety of different sales activities and marketing leading to this journey for myself.
Yeah, I love that. And thank you for that insight. And as you're sharing your story, I was thinking, I didn't even realize how closely aligned our backgrounds were. Just to share a little bit more insight with yourself. And, maybe my followers know or not, but my entire career, I went to college in my major initially as well was marketing and international business. And I'd never really worked in marketing per se, but I went into sales directly in health insurance. And I don't know why health insurance, thanks to my father who got me into he was an insurance broker in Southern California. So he got me into insurance. And then I just kind of continued pursuing my career or moving along that trajectory line with my career in that industry and eventually just started loving it. And I knew I always wanted to be in sales in some regard. Never really saw myself initially or back in high school or college that I would be in health insurance, but it was rewarding and I did like it and enjoyed it. And similarly, I worked, I got that comfortable salary or at a bigger company in corporate America and eventually wanting to further enhance my career went into some startup TPAs, third party oh my goodness, why am I blanking on the term? But went into for insurance as well with some startups, and it was a three different start. Actually, ended up being four. But again, having those own challenges where I was brought in to expand and had the responsibility to sell and go out and sell their products and their networks because they needed to grow their book of business. But then being a startup needed to eventually recruit a sales team so that they can expand on territory and whatnot to lead those sales teams to further grow that company's book of business. And it had its own challenges because, of course, being a startup, funding was limited.
Yes.
And so forth. So very, very interesting. And I love that story. And then, so knowing with yourself, I know that you had great success overall driving revenue. Would you be able to share some tips or a few tips with listeners on how they can develop sales and strategy techniques that support revenue growth?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely a broad question, right? Depending on
Yeah.
B2B, B2C, but I think there are techniques that could be more of a catch-all. And even today when I consult, I'll consult with either companies that have revenue stream and they have their sales engine going, but something is maybe preventing it from going as efficient as it can, or there's an area that we want to figure out where is it maybe broken or about to be broken. So
Mm-hmm.
evaluating that. Or I'm working with a lot of startups. I love
Mm-hmm.
startups. It's my passion of helping founders visions come to life. And
Mm-hmm.
I think in both realms, one of the areas that I always start in is defining your target market and your audience. And for a lot of people, they can service many different people and they know that. But it seems like the more you can service, the better it's going to be. But actually, the more complex that is. And so, really being able to hone in what did you build for who and why, and honing in on that target market. I think the more detailed we can get, okay, of this target market, who are our decision makers versus our influencers? Our influencers are often the ones that maybe are dealing with the problem. So your solution could solve it for them, but they don't have decision making power. They can open up the door for you, get a seat at the table, help to toot your horn. Absolutely. Maybe give you insights. And then your decision makers are the ones that control the budget, but may not be close to the actual problem. And so honing in on the target market, then defining it and breaking it down by the different personas, to me is so critical because that lays the foundation for everything else. How are you going to communicate? Where are you going to find these people? When you do find them, how are you going to talk to the decision maker different than the influencer on the problems you're solving? What can you pull out emotionally, right? Those trigger points of what their problems are that you're solving. So start really high level. I think the target market and the audience is so, so critical. Then really breaking it down. Okay, well, who are they? Where are they? What's the language that they speak? A lot of times in sales, we are so passionate about what we do and our product being the best product, but then we forget that we start to highlight our features, our functionality, and we start to talk in internal terminology that just doesn't always resonate with our end audience. So we want to talk the way that they are talking. What acronyms do they use? What goals, metrics, or problems are they trying to solve? What keeps them up at night? And I think doing some research, whether it's joining forums, reading articles, or different publications that your clients read, get inside their head, right? The more we can get inside their head and the way that they think, how they're working, what that different acronyms, terminology, whatever it might be is, then you can start to guide your messaging towards your audience. So when they look at your email or when they talk to you at a conference or see you or you do a cold call or whatever it might be, we now know who our audience is. We're very specific and narrowed in on what we're talking about to them. And our goal isn't to just talk about us and our features, it's to get them to talk, get them to us to paint a picture, right? A scenario of their world, their problems, and trigger some emotion where they want to learn more. So I just think, hands down, that's a really important area for companies to self reflect on. If they already have revenue coming in, take the pause and maybe sit back and say, okay, who is our ideal customer profile? What customers do we have? What makes up our customer base? Is it one area over the other? Is that the area we're targeting? Do we need to start targeting? Do we need to change our messaging to hit this market that we otherwise didn't know we were going to serve? That happens sometimes. Or maybe it's just reflecting and validating that we still are going to the same market. Has anything shifted in their world, which changes our dialogue, changes the way we communicate with them? So I think it's a good reflection point for companies to go through and to use their own data when they can to help them hone in on it and make sure that they're really still, from a marketing and sales communication, and even how they're designing products or anything on the customer journey, their help desk, all of that still really fits for the mold of that target audience. It doesn't mean other people can't use your services or won't come to you, but it just allows you to really service this market the right way. And if you don't have that market, then that's where it's, who are you building it for? What are you trying to build it? What's your target market that you believe you're going for? So we could validate, test the waters, build your customer base up so you could get to the point of reflection and kind of making tweaks and iterating it along the way. But I will say, in my opinion, that is kind of the foundation of what you need to do first and foremost. Then to me, it's really about standing out. Right now, our buyers more than ever can do their own research. They are utilizing social platforms, LinkedIn, or any other social media in a rate that they weren't using before. So being able to stand out as an expert, as someone that talks the talk like they are, of where your target market is, someone that when you do reach out, you're researched, you are personalizing it. It doesn't, even if you're using automated tools to help you do it, especially for startups, you're maybe one person trying to do a variety of different roles. But even if you are using automations, the more you can hone in on your market, you can still personalize it and be more specific. And I'm not talking about some of the automatic, automation tools, personalizations that just kind of pull in a random work anniversary or whatever. It's really doing some of that research and being able to stand out. Most of our customers are getting hundreds, if not more, emails from salespeople every single day.
Yeah.
Why should they click on your email? What are you doing? The subject and that first sentence that makes them stop their day and they're intrigued and want to actually click on your email to do something about it. And so I think it just all bubbles up to, do you know who your audience is? And have you really researched who they are, what matters most to them, so that you can get that door to open?
Yeah, and I think so many great points there that you just kind of got my mind rolling with several more questions for you. But one, do you think that that's so everything that you just provided to us right now, does that vary in your opinion or expertise, whether you are B2C or B2B?
It's a great question. I mean, I don't specialize in B2B as much, or
Mm-hmm.
B2C, excuse me, but
Mm-hmm.
I have worked for a number of companies where it's B2B to C models.
Yeah.
So I'm
Mm-hmm.
selling to a business and then the business is servicing consumers. And so we need to
Okay.
still speak, or those consumers are still using our product through the customer, but they don't
Mm-hmm.
interact with us because that's, we're doing that B2B model. And so for that, I still feel like absolutely you need to know your market. You
Mm-hmm.
need to be able to communicate in that way. I think B2C has a greater opportunity of leveraging social media and more
Mm-hmm.
marketing for that top of the funnel kind of awareness. You can definitely still be a catch all. And I think with B2C, you might see a broader audience that you need to be able to target and hone in on. But at the end of the day, the more that you try to spread yourself thin to talking with people, then your budget gets spread really thin. Your time, energy, and effort gets spread really thin. So being able to maximize and seek the revenue you're seeking, I do believe being more honed in makes sense. But then those reflection points, especially with consumer based products, there's so many more data points you can leverage through social media or whatever your
Mm-hmm.
platforms are that you're utilizing, in addition to the consumer coming and filling out your form to purchase your product, that
Mm-hmm.
those forms have an opportunity to get updated to collect more information that could then dictate a rising category that might be worth shifting investment towards or sales tactics towards. And so I think the reflection on who is our target market, has it shifted and changed from what we originally set out from the reality of who's actually buying us, is where it might change. But I do think if you cast too wide of a net, you might feel productive and feel like you're catching more people, but the rate at what you're doing it at is going to be a lot less, or maybe it's a quick short-term win, but it's not really going to be a sustainable long-term solution.
Yeah. And I am just thinking back as well on my experience. Most of my experience had always been in my career B2B. And one of the things that's, piggybacking off of a point or a comment that you mentioned a few minutes ago was really doing your homework and listening to your audience or who your buyer is. And that being a point, because I feel that that's something that I've attested to my success in sales throughout my entire career in health insurance. When I would get asked as far as, meeting quotas or surpassing quotas, is what is your approach? And I mean, I never formally did a sales training in the sense of teaching these different methodologies as far as sales. But really feel that what has led to success for me was one, exactly as you said, it was doing my homework for not just that customer, but that industry, because every industry is a little different. Again, the lingo, the terminology, understanding them, communicating to them as they communicate, and having my homework done. And then also not just going out and pitching all the details about what it is that I'm selling. So all the bells and whistle, but sharing some information and then sitting back and being quiet and listening, because ultimately they are sharing the problem. They are sharing their needs within that. So instead of me going out and saying, but I got this and I got this and all these different solutions for you, which may not even be appropriate for their needs, but being able to sit back and listen, they're sharing exactly with you what their problem is, and being able to use that to find a solution for them, but then sell make that sale, because you're being able to provide them the solution that they're actually looking for. And then also retain them year
Yes.
after year, or to retain them long term, because you're sitting back and you're listening and you're providing them solutions repeatedly,
Yeah,
type of thing.
I totally, and I cannot, so many times in my sales career to that point, I always tell my reps, stay curious, ask the question. Like, our customers and prospects are a way we can further refine or do our market research. And there's been so many times where I feel that with many of my customers, we got to know each other so well in the process that I could then rely on them. For those referrals, the testimonies, the upsell, but then asking them ideas. Hey, I'm thinking about this, or I'm trying to get a breakthrough in this area. What do you know? And I think as you step back and listen or dig deeper on what they're talking about and use those active listening skills, and that is where the trust and the rapport building come in beyond just the initial sell. And I think that's also so critical, is that these customers are a wealth of knowledge. And as you start to dig more, it's helped me every time a customer shares their insights or stories. I'm like, tell me more about that. Well, why did
Yes.
that? Why did that hurt you? Or what did that cause? What would have happened? Then the next person I call, I'm
Hmm.
like, I just talked to so and so and they brought up this example. And they're like, I have that same one. I know so and so. And it's like
Hmm.
being able to not just go off of a script. And like, if you're only selling your product, then it's much more not robot like. You could obviously
Hmm.
have your own personality, but you're so narrowed in and focused on this is what
Yeah.
we sell and this is the only thing. But when you step back and listen and dig and ask those questions, it's just like so many other aspects come from it beyond that initial sell, which I've always appreciated.
Yes, exactly. And also to sideline a little bit as far as networking. So I feel like networking is often talked about, but not always fully understood in terms of what the impact is. And the impact of networking and having a solid network is significant. So would you be able to tell us a little bit about the benefits of finding your people, and why it's crucial to network beyond your typical circle?
Yes, it's such a great question. And I'll say, even this whole year has been my transformational journey on what matters and how I'm networking. And so for me, it's a couple of different areas. I'm always curious and wanting to learn. And so being able to do professional development is one aspect that I absolutely love about networking, whether it's just being able to speak to someone else and learn something about what they do or who they are, what they represent, even if it is my customer type or it's not, there's something that I can learn, and that energizing kind of boost I need every now and then is really important. So when it comes to networking, a couple of things I've done is kind of blocked out the different areas that I'm most interested in. So I think one thing as founders or even director, VP, executives, like as you start to rise the ranking at a company, one of the struggles I had was I did have to separate myself from my peers, right? I was now their manager, and my world started getting smaller and smaller and smaller on who I can talk to about problems, who I can maybe open up and vent to, or just know that I'm not alone without seeming like I was just complaining, or without saying something to the wrong type of person at the organization. And so, that area was a struggle for me to learn on. And the other thing is my family, my partners, like they don't necessarily, my friends, they don't necessarily all have similar backgrounds as me or have gone through the same kind of rise up in the organizations. So I was also finding that my personal network couldn't always be there for me the way that I would need to, in terms of learning or having someone to go to and lean on.
Mhm.
So I kind of segmented out friends and family. What can I leverage and utilize them for? And where do I find my joy and happiness? And how do I factor that into my schedule? Then it was my own professional development. Where can I go to meet more people? And when I say my people, it's other founders, other leaders, other and how we met, right? Through a great
Mm-hmm.
organization that focuses on women empowerment and women founders. It's been phenomenal because they have extraordinary virtual meetings and education. They have a great forum that you can talk to people on. Everyone is so active and just having coffee chats to know you're not alone and to find other people. I have found so many people where it's like, I'm not even looking for clients. I'm finding people where
Yeah.
we potentially can partner together or be able to lean on each other or just have someone I can, hold accountability, that sort of thing. So that's been really critical for my success. And I would highly recommend, whether you run your own business or not, if you're rising up in the ranking, find other people and groups that have similar people in that realm, because it's really important, not only for networking and maybe future career opportunities, but I think just figuring out ways to better yourself and continue to be the best in your role. You got to this place for a reason. Keep learning and educating yourself as you go up the rankings. Sometimes the professional development, if you're lucky to have it at your company, doesn't necessarily go higher and higher as that number of employees start to shrink. So do it
Mm-hmm.
yourself and lean into it. And then I think when it comes from a sales perspective, like, where are your customers interacting? And yes, conferences are a great area. Sometimes they might not give you the ROI in terms of customers coming back to you, but is that an area where you can flex and be an expert by being a part of a speaking opportunity? Can you mix and mingle with your customers and get pulled in with others and just be a part of their world? And again, being a part of their world, it's your world because that's where your
Yes.
sales are focused on, but they're also part of your network. And like I said, when it's time to ask for the renewal, upsell on new products, get some market feedback on new product launches that your product team wants to learn about. Your marketing team wants to conduct some surveys so that they can better their messaging or a campaign, or you simply cannot get in the door somewhere. Like, taking it beyond the sell and going into the networking side of just getting to know people, having happy hours. When COVID hit, we started having happy hours and bingo games with our
Mm-hmm.
customers and planning
Oh,
different
fun.
events that we could build networking, as a group. We invited other vendor partners that were in our industry, and just having that sense of community that we can all lean on each other was so critical. It's been
Mm-hmm.
critical for a recruitment strategy. It's been critical for an evolution of our sales messaging. Like I mentioned again and again, like the renewals, the open up the doors or the referrals, and then just your own personal development. So to me, I've kind of bucketed out on like the
Yeah.
people in terms of where I can generate revenue, where can I find my people that are in my same boat that I can lean on when I have a rough day, or I'm just not confident in something that I've done. Or you get the no's. We get no's every now and then, right? In sales, and sometimes you need someone to talk to that gets it. And
Yes.
so just kind of bucketing it out has been important for me to find where that's at. And some of them don't work out, and don't
Mm-hmm.
give up. I think you just still have to find the ones that are right for you.
Yeah, and I love that I love everything that you said, but I also love that you segmented out those different groups, if you will. I think, looking back even from the beginning of my career, I had always initially thought, or for the longest time, thought about networking as going to those conferences or whatever it may be, those after work events where I can meet people and meet opportunities, prospects, ultimately, that I'm building up that pipeline. And that is an essential. Yes, you do get opportunities and you build your pipeline through networking or referrals that you get from those networking events, but it isn't all about that. And I would say, even in more recent years, similarly, exactly what you're saying, actually, but I had never really processed it as so. But in more recent years, starting to create that network of like minded individuals. So even if we are in different industries, but who gets me? Who gets where, these different things? Because, of course, certain friends and family, and they are your network and they are your people, but we don't always have the same interest or to vent or to talk to about different things. So again, similarly in the past couple of years, being able to develop that network, and then even more so in the past year now that I've been a full-time entrepreneur, to say, or working for myself, uh, building the network. And again, it is not like it was a something that I had to switch the mindset on for myself, because again, prior to, it was like, oh, that's where you go to prospect and get that next opportunity. But it isn't so much so, yes, you may get some opportunities for business, but even furthermore, networking and building relationships and building friendships and also learning new things, things that I may not even have thought about, but getting introduced to a new concept or idea or platform, whatever it may be, that makes me now consider like, oh, maybe I should implement that into my business or take this learning opportunity. So networks are so great and have such high value. And similarly to the network that we are both members of and how we met. So I've met so many great women over the past year alone that I've been a member as well. So the value of networking. I am always pushing my students. We have a community for real estate that we do, a community, and pushing them out to go out, step out of your comfort zone, because it isn't always comfortable, at least for myself. Sometimes like, I don't
Right.
really want to go talk and have those conversations, but going out and meeting people as well. So it's great. I
Yeah.
love that you said that. And then also, again, knowing that you've built an incredible career in sales leadership and with founding RevUp, what encouragement or piece of advice would you um, be able to give those who are hesitant to take the leap to invest in themselves or go out and have that conversation with a prospect or whatever it may be? What is a piece of advice that you would give them?
Oh man, I think you just have to do it.
Yeah.
I was actually just speaking with some other folks from a networking kind of group that we've started to form outside of our networking group, which was great. And I think a lot of times what holds us back from a sales perspective, right? Like, don't get me wrong, I still get nervous giving phone calls and doing my cold calls. It's like I have to get in the zone. I time block my calendar. Like, I have to be prepared. But I also know that when I don't do it, it's a reflection on my feelings later on. Oh, my pipeline's not there. Am I going to survive? Like, am I going to hit my numbers? Well, how can you if you're not putting forth the effort? It's like, when you're in
Yeah.
sports, if you don't practice all the time, then you go on the field. If you don't do your best, well, is it because you just are not ever going to be a good athlete, or did you not put in the time, energy, and effort to being the best you can be while on the field at that time? So for me, I feel like one of my pieces of advice is that you just have to do it. When it comes to sales, I feel that a lot of the folks I speak to that are creating a product but don't come from sales, it's nerve wracking for them, right? And so it's like, okay, again, let's take the pause. Who are we trying to meet with? What is the problems? It goes through everything we were going through earlier on really being able to know your market. And then I think role playing. Like, everything I've done in sales was role playing. And so I feel like sometimes people don't realize, oh, you just sound so natural. You've done it. It's like, yeah, well, I also worked there for 10 years, but my first year wasn't that way. And if a new product came in or a change in the industry came in, I then had to rehearse and practice. So for me, my style of doing that is I do write a script. I write a script of what I want to say. I read it out loud, and the script I end up putting in front of the customer, it's no longer a script because I confidently say what I want, but it's like my methodology of doing it. What works for me is, and whether it's a conference I'm speaking at or a new cold call I'm doing, it's,
Mhm.
what is it that I want to get out, tweak, make the changes, make those sentences really impactful. Am I talking about the customer? Am I painting their scenarios? Am I triggering them in an emotional way? Could I be more specific when I say this broad question? So I really try to hone in on that. Then I say it out loud. I will record myself. It's cringy. You hate hearing yourself on playbacks. Absolutely. But one of my first jobs where I did sales was I sold season tickets at for football and softball, basketball, like a whole bunch of different sports at my college. And we went through sales training, and it was saying the script out loud back and forth with people. Then we would have random phone calls, recorded. And then we would sit with our manager and go through them. What could we have done differently? Have you heard this, that, or the other? Okay, let's practice more. And I hated it. I absolutely hated it, but it transformed me. And so that's where I think it's like, you just got to do it. And if you are hesitant to do it, especially if you don't do sales as your normal profession, which we can argue you're doing sales always, But
Yes.
if you're running your own business, like, revenue is critical for your business success, and just hiring in experts to do it for you, they're not going to always resonate with your vision and what you want to do, or you're not at the place that you have enough runway to be able to hire them. So you got to roll up your sleeves and do it. And if you're uncomfortable doing it, to me, that means you haven't practiced enough or you don't feel authentic. And so if you don't feel authentic in what you're saying, again, writing that down, what is it that I want them to know about me? How do I transform it in the eyes of the customer? And then how do I dry run it? And again, Zoom or, whatever other platform exists, if recording it and playing it back to yourself is one aspect, those networks that you have, family, friends, take the low risk people. Your friends and family that don't do sales at all are going to just say, "You're amazing. I loved it." But you got the practice out with them. If you go to that next layer, right, of professionals that are doing it as well, they start to dig on questions just like your customers will. So that gives you that next layer. So to me, it's like, instead of, if you don't feel comfortable getting thrown in the fire, going to your prospects or customers right away, use your network to role play and try. And at worst case, record yourself and replay it back, but you just have to get out there and do it. And then I would say taking the leap of faith on yourself, that was also, it's similar. Like, you just at some point need to do it. It's any big change. There's never the right time. There's never a good time. And you just have to rip the Band-Aid off. And for me, taking the leap on myself and starting my own business was identifying that something was still missing from my purpose and what I wanted. And my purpose shifted at one time, rising the ranks of at an organization, making a lot of money. That was success for me. That's what I always thought was my purpose and what I enjoyed doing. And at some point it wasn't any longer. And so I took that time to reflect, well, what is it that I want? And I wanted meaning and I wanted purpose in what I did. And I was lucky that every company I've worked for had a really good backstory of why we were doing what we were doing. We were solving a genuine problem to help better someone or multiple people. So I did like that. And so I just really reflected on, what is it that I want? What do I define success as? Am I getting it at my job, or can I get it elsewhere? Or can I be in my own control? And to me, I never thought I would run my own business. I love partnering with CEOs and founders and them being visionaries. And like, this is great. I have a visionary towards strategy for your problem that you're solving, and I'm glad to be your partner. But I'm never going to invent something. I'm never going to invent a product, and who knows, never say never. But my goal was not to invent it. My brain doesn't think that way. And then it just hit me, I can utilize my talents, my skills, and I can continue to make an impact at an individual organization, or I could hopefully make an impact by working with more people in a shorter or longer period of time. And it's been phenomenal meeting people, the networking, like, I'm finding my purpose once again. And so that might not be everyone's story, but I think taking that step back, I was negative Nancy. I, was complaining all the time. And it was just like, my partner, he's like, "What are you going to do about it? Why aren't you making changes?" Like, and to me, it's like, well, it's easier said than done. What do you mean? And it was easy. It took a lot of courage. And I will say, there's still ups and downs, and the highs are highs, the lows are lows, and it's a roller coaster. But now I can lean on people. I'm building something of my own, and it reflects back to my goals. What's my purpose? What am I looking to achieve? And I found that through starting my own business. And so I think that reflection is one thing. And then at some point, you have to do it. And the hardest thing for me is I tried to lean on other people within my family network and love them all. They just didn't get it because they've never been in that position. So to get their advice, it was opposite, right? Like, "Oh, you're leaving your job," like, "Oh, security." And so then it made me second guess my decisions. But once I started to speak to other founders, it was like, "You're silly not to do this. Why? Your skill sets are here." And so I went down a whole path of my past bosses and leadership folks that have worked with me. And I called all of them, like, what are your thoughts on this? Like, tell me something. And man, it's been a long time since I've asked outside of a performance review what you think about me. And it boosted my confidence so much. And it was what I needed to really move forward. So, and then I just did it, and it's been just amazing ever since.
Yeah, I love that, and I say that all the time as well. As far as just do it, I wish I can coin it my own motto, but I know it's Nike's. But I guess Nike's motto. But I say that all the time, and no matter or regardless what it is that you're trying to jump into, whether it's entrepreneurship, doing something daring, or facing a fear, regardless what it is, I really do believe you just got to take that step forward eventually. You just got to do it. You're not going to have all the answers. The timing isn't perfect. You don't know all the information because you're always learning. But you eventually just have to take that jump and just do it. And you'll figure it out along the way. And you're always learning. You're always learning. And I love that you said that you took when you were, considering going out and be starting your business with RevUp, that you went to others and asked them for their opinion and advice and input as far as like, what do you think about me? What do you think about this idea? Because I know that it can be nerve wracking and similar myself. Like when I left corporate America, I'm like, this is what I had always deemed a success, but now my priorities changed. I wanted freedom. I wanted time, and my priorities had changed, but leaving behind that security of a salary and a job and what I had always perceived or thought as success. And it is success, but it was just that I wanted something different now. And when I took that leap, I didn't tell anybody really, aside from my husband. It was actually months in that, I was sharing with my parents even. They're like, what do you don't work there anymore? I'm like, no, I haven't for like 8 months now or whatever it may be. And it's just that I couldn't really tell people initially because I didn't want to second guess myself or have further fear or worry about, am I making the right decision? Type of thing. But I love that you went to other peers and asked them for their input and advice, and that boosting your confidence. I wish I would have done something similar. I love that piece of advice.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny you say that because I will say that it's been a major transformation on myself. I was very
Mm-hmm.
much, I pride myself on being independent, being strong, people relying on me always and coming to me
Mm-hmm.
for advice or to support. And I was leading a team. And so I think to ask for help was very difficult for me, and it still very much is. And so when I did decide to do this and went to people, I'm like, what do you think? And, some of the advice is like, well, like you have this in you. Remember when you did this? I would
Mm-hmm.
absolutely believe in you doing this. Here, I should link you to this person. Whatever you're going to charge more because I know you're going to undercut yourself. It's just like a whole bunch of different feedback that I really appreciated. And I have not seek that help or advice in a lot of realm. And it was just, I think it was my way of accountability to what you're saying, like not telling your family and making sure you could do it. I was afraid that if I did it too under the radar, that it was easier for me to fail because no one knew or could hold me accountable. And now every time I see people, it's like, how's your business? Did you get a new client? And, even if I haven't or whatever, I'm like, oh, I need to focus on this. Everyone, without knowing
Mm-hmm.
it, they're holding me accountable. So putting it
Mm-hmm.
out into the universe was important for me to hold myself accountable and to like take the plunge that I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just something that I had never done before in other decisions. Like it's always so personal and between me and whoever's involved, and everyone does find out later. And this was oddly the first time where I was just like, no, I got to tell everyone this is what's happening. And that actually led to a lot more direction, insight, and motivation that I didn't even expect to get from it.
That's great. Overall, so much great information. Thank you for joining me on this episode and sharing all of that with myself and our listeners. But for our listeners, can you share with them where they can find you?
Yes, absolutely. So you can absolutely go to LinkedIn and find me, Shannon Godfrey, as well as RevUp is also through LinkedIn. But you can just go to my website, which is revupyoursales.com. And there are buttons throughout it where you can click, get time with me. I always love to chat with people. I am more than willing to give direction and advice. And just even if it's something I can't help with, if I can link you to other people, that is, again, the part of my purpose and what I'm trying to do is help others be successful. So RevUpYourSales.com is one of the easiest ways, and you can get right in touch with me. I'm happy to share more insights or talk through anything with anyone anytime.
Great. And just to be sure, everyone will be including all of her links and contact information below in the show notes. So there will be absolutely no trouble finding her, locating her on LinkedIn, the website, and so forth. But Shannon, again, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your insights on sales and strategy and the importance of networking. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much, Laura, for having me. This is so exciting.